You know, how many bands would give their right arm to hit the big time? You know, to have their song played everywhere, to tour the world and take their music to the masses. Well, today's band did. Their singer wrote a hit song about hitting the big time, and then when this very song that he wrote pulverized radio and made them huge stars, the singer absolutely hated it. He detested the song, and at the peak of selling millions of records and playing sold-out shows, he cracked. He quit music and he took a job as a bartender. He just was hiding out. Could anything pull him back into the music? Find out next on one of the craziest stories of a band you'll ever hear on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, people have had a hard time communicating with you from time to time because you have earphones in, listening to music. You'll be right at home with this channel. Make sure that you subscribe below, hit the red button, click the bell so that you get the story straight from the legends every single day. So it's time for another edition of our show, Breakthrough. In this show, we break down songs, albums, events, that kicked open the door to an artist or band's career and gave them that momentum to rocket to long-term success. Today, we're going to dive deep into the story of Counting Crows, their happy-go-lucky hit, Mr. Jones. This is such a cool story. One night back in the early 90s, singer-songwriter Adam Duritz was out on the town in San Francisco with friend and bassist bandmate Marty Jones. The two had ventured out to the Mission District to catch a performance by Marty's father, who was a talented flamenco guitarist, and his troupe. I guess it was quite a show. And after the gig was over, everybody went out drinking at an establishment called the New Amsterdam. While they were there, Adam and Marty sat at the bar, checking out a couple of beautiful girls, trying to muster the courage to talk to them. But the band brothers both felt too self-conscious to make the first move. Meanwhile, sitting in the corner, there was another guy who was getting all the girls. It was actually Chris Isaak's drummer, Kenny Del Johnson. And he was surrounded by three ladies. Back then, Chris Isaak's band was the hottest rockabilly outfit in the city. Clearly, Kenny was reaping the benefits, so to say. Staring across the room, Adam started thinking, man, if we were more famous, maybe we'd be able to do just that. Said Duritz, I remember just talking about it with Marty saying, now we have got to get it together and become rock stars. But that night, the two didn't get it together, and they spent the rest of the night at the bar all alone. Later, after Adam got back home, he channeled his feelings and these frustrations into a new song that he called Mr. Jones. Now, Duritz actually doesn't remember, much about writing the song. It's just that he did it in the middle of the night. He was pretty drunk, and, lest anyone get confused by the title, Adam also explained that the song is completely about him, not Marty. Mr. Jones was just along for the ride. Not surprisingly, many of the song's lyrics, they draw on details from Adam's earlier outing, down at the New Amsterdam. Black-haired flamenco dancer, stare at the beautiful women, pass me a bottle, Mr. Jones. But the main message of the song clearly points to Adam's desire to be famous. We all want to be big, big stars. Yeah, but we got different reasons for that. Big stars, yeah, but we got different reasons for that. Actually, he said the song is about the foolishness of thinking that everybody liking you will make your whole life better. When everybody loves me, I'll never be lonely. You're supposed to know that that's not true. Adam continued, for one thing, there's no such thing as everybody loves me. So I knew that wasn't going to happen that way. But you still want it. You want life to be easier. You want to be a rock star, so it's easier to maybe talk to a girl. Though Adam Duritz might not have thought it was possible at that time, his wish would eventually come true, for better or worse. Now, before things started taking off for Adam and Counting Crows, the songwriter spent years and years playing bars, open mic, coffee houses. and many other types of gigs like that. For a while, he was even in 3 bands at one time, singing backup for Sordid Humor, writing lyrics for Himalayans, and tinkering with an early version of Counting Crows. But after several years of playing in local, Bay Area bands, Adam was growing weary and he was depressed. Music was feeling more like a hobby than the career that he wanted it to be. However, in 1990, while Adam and guitarist Dave Bryson were making rounds on the coffeehouse circuit, they caught the attention of pianist Charlie Gillingham. He was visibly moved by their song Around Here, and he immediately wanted in. Around here. The trio would form the foundation of the official Counting Crows, and by early 1991, Adam and Dave asked Charlie, along with bassist Matt Malley, and also Steve Bowman, be the drummer, they all wanted to record this demo. Now, Dave, who had production skills and a recording studio, he oversaw the making of a 14-track tape. Now, the resulting mix was on a level far above everything else that was there. Not long after the demo started to circulate, Counting Crows became the talk of the town. And in January of 92, Counting Crows put on 2 music industry showcases, which garnered a lot of attention. By the Monday morning after their second show, an A&R feeding frenzy had begun. 9 record companies wanted to make a deal with them. Ultimately, Geffen, of course Geffen, they were all the rage back then. They promised complete creative control, and they came out the winner. I've been thinking about if you could have ever had a rock and roll band trying to make it, I think the best time in history to have gotten discovered would likely have been about 1992, right after Nirvana hit. Labels were signing everybody, anybody who was half decent. Maybe right after the Beatles hit too. One of the two. Anyway, so not long after Counting Crows settled into a Hollywood Hills house with legendary producer T-Bone Burnett to make their first album, they surprisingly had 14 high-end demo tracks on hand. It took 9 months to complete the album. Regardless, the Crows found their voice, and they had 11 top-tier songs to show for that. Adam described the album, called August and Everything After, as being really about him. They're not necessarily about the events happening to me, he said, so much as the feelings that I have. It's a very draining thing to write them. It's very difficult being in the middle of some of them. Difficult as they may have been to live through, the stories in songcraft proved easy and enjoyable to listen to. The album included multiple singles. There was Round Here. Round here, something Rain King. And A Murder of One. Though the latter actually wasn't released in the US. And then, of course, there's also today's featured song, Mr. Jones. But if you stick with just the singles, you're really missing out on this album because it's got a lot to offer, filled with soulful ballads. Acoustic gems and keyboard confessions. It's worth so much more than the price of admission. I recommend a deeper dive into this record for sure. August and Everything After, it's a good record. It was released on September 14th, 1993. Definitely a strong debut. A modern take on traditional rock. It was both an enticing throwback to 60s and 70s and also a welcome update to the bygone era. But this actually complicated things, and as it turns out, expectations for the album were actually pretty modest. Some industry players even thought that Counting Crows were playing in the wrong decade. Make no mistake, though, everyone in the business loved it. They just didn't know what to do with it. Grunge and hip-hop were all the rage on the airwaves, and a lot of DJs just didn't think it would fit on their station. Mr. Jones was Counting Crows' first single. It was their first hit, and it's remained one of their most well-known songs throughout the years. But apparently, the label didn't want it as a single. Go figure. Instead, they wanted A Murder of One because it had this Jesus Jones drum beat. Right here, right now, there is no other But the problem was they also wanted to edit it down to a more radio-friendly length. But Adam wasn't having it, and he refused to let them do it. After all, creative control was a big reason that they signed with Geffen. Another option was Rain King, great song. Everyone thought that that would be the biggest hit off the album. But because of the way things worked at the time, the label wanted to release an introductory song before they put out any singles, just to test the market. To take the heat off of A Murder of One, Adam chose Mr. Jones instead, not thinking it would make much of a showing. The label agreed, and they released it as a non-single, I guess. But with radio stations already struggling to figure out the record, expectations were low, let's put it that way. So Counting Crows headed out on tour to hopefully build some interest, some momentum. But to their surprise, people were really into their shows and started asking what song was their single. Since it was the closest thing they had, the band would just lie and say Mr. Jones. Funny thing is, after a while, it wasn't really a lie anymore. As the Crows continued to play these smaller venues, local DJs discovered their music through word of mouth, and they intuitively gravitated toward Mr. Jones. Then, of course, being the 90s, the music video for Mr. Jones, that was crucial too. Directed by Charles Whittemire, the video was released in 1993, and it featured the band playing the song in a living room, interspersed with shots of a building and a woman dancing on the stage in a red dress. But the dancing that caught everyone's attention was actually Adam's, because he was moving like no one was watching, like he didn't have a care in the world. Definitely, it was one of the most memorable music videos of that year. Show me some of them Spanish dances and pass me. But the biggest turning point for Counting Crows came when music exec John Sykes called up Saturday Night Live's Lorne Michaels. He told him about this great new band that he had to hear. After Lorne Michaels gave Counting Crows a listen, Adam and company were booked for January 15th, 1994, the appearance on Saturday Night Live.
It's Saturday Night Live!
That night, Counting Crows played 2 songs in front of America. Round Here and Mr. Jones.
Once again, Counting Crows.
The response was phenomenal, and sales of August and Everything After shot through the roof, making Mr. Jones go-to radio anthem. And that's when SNL, that's when they could really make bones for any artist. Now, Adam maintains, however, that it was Around Here that blew them up, since that was the first song that they played on SNL, and he believes that more people were likely to have seen it, than Mr. Jones, which came later. Regardless of which song did the trick, though, Counting Crows absolutely blew up after that. In fact, August and Everything After, it jumped 40 spots a week for 5 weeks until it reached number 4. Stayed on the chart for a total of 93 weeks. It was during this Adam Duritz got his Mr. Jones wish. He went from a life of scrimping obscurity to that of a global rock star. But as the saying goes, careful what you wish for. Because in this case, fame has a few drawbacks. And Adam would soon start to notice. In the US, Mr. Jones became a triple threat. Reached number 2 on the mainstream top 40, the mainstream rock chart, and the alternative chart. Internationally, it reached number 28 in the UK, went to number 27 in Austria, number 22 in Italy, number 13 in Australia, number 10 in Iceland, number 10 in Poland, number 7 in France, and it went to number 1 in Canada. In 94, Counting Crows won the Best New Artist Award at the MTV Music Video Awards. And then the next single, Round Here, went to number 10 on the US mainstream top 40. She says only in my head. Went to number 7 on the alternative airplay chart as well. At this point, Adam was like, hold on, wait a second, this is moving way too fast. All of a sudden, he wasn't so sure about getting his face on every magazine cover. He wasn't sure that was such a good idea. And having riotous fans camping outside your home, well, that didn't go over too well either. But more than anything, Adam Duritz was concerned that Counting Crows could become a musical history footnote. He didn't want him to be the next big fad that's flamed out. So after the Round Here video was released, Adam shut it all down. Rain King, the album, the would-be strongest single, that was held back. There was no music video, no official release as a single. And the same went for any other potential single suitors. The band would tour, that was it. Craving more Crow, audiences kept the party going though. And Rain King, Single or Not, went to number 4 on the mainstream rock chart. That kept August and Everything After accelerating. Within 6 months of that Saturday Night Live showing, Counting Crows had sold 1 million records. A couple of years later, that number would rise to 7 million, one of the biggest albums of that time. Thanks to Mr. Jones and his follow-ups, Adam Duritz was suddenly recognized all over America and beyond. And this newfound near overnight notoriety sent him into a prolonged funk. Or in other words, he got really freaked out. No longer did he dream of being a rock star so that he could talk to girls. That wasn't a problem anymore. Instead, he dreamt about returning to the quiet life that he once knew. It was total and complete irony. His most popular song, a song about longing for fame, had now turned against him, really. He was living out the lyrics that he'd written. He wasn't liking it. You can only imagine how much he must have loathed singing the song at the time. As a result, Adam dropped out of the music scene for a little bit there. He even stopped writing songs for over a year. Said bandmate Charlie Gillingham, I remember calling him up and saying, Adam, you want to get together? You want to write? You want to rehearse? And he said, I'm not in a band right now. Can you imagine that? On his quest for anonymity, Duritz migrated from San Francisco to LA, and he found a new home at the Viper Room in Hollywood. There he got a job as a bartender, and no one seemed to care who he was. Seems his journey had come full circle. Sure, it was a different bar, but Adam had made it back to the place where Mr. Jones had kicked it all off, hanging around in a bar where nobody knew his name. It's funny. The time away proved to be just what Adam needed, though, and the following summer, he finally reunited with Counting Crows. They got to work on their sophomore album, which was Recovering the Satellites. Though it would be a 3-year gap between the two records, for Crows fans, it would be worth the wait. Said Duritz, my whole life had changed in the wake of the first album. People bitch about people writing a second album. They're about, wow, it's hard being famous. But what are you supposed to do? It's your life. It changes. It's really weird. It's difficult to deal with. It was such a weird thing to go from being a pretty shy, private person to being on the cover of magazine stands. I wasn't really prepared for that. Since those days, Adam Duritz and Counting Crows have put together a really impressive career. 8 studio albums. 6 of them have broken the Billboard Top 10. 2002's Hard Candy went to number 5. 2008's Saturday Nights and Sunday Mornings went to number 3. And 1996's Recovering the Satellites, that went to number 1. Now, as far as the singles after August and Everything After, 17 have broken the adult alternative top 20. One of the biggest alternative bands of the time. 2 of those were number 2 hits, and count them, 7 have gone to number 1.
A long December, and there's reason to believe I've been hanging around this town corner.
Looking back on how it all started, maybe Adam Duritz was right to slow things down so early on. He was pretty worried about burning out so quickly. I'd say their career, though, has been the polar opposite of that. In fact, it's been nothing short of astonishing, really. They've had a long-lasting career. Then again, had Adam have kept the pedal to the metal and released The Rain King as the next single, a few more, and then a follow-up album immediately after, they may have been the biggest band in rock for many years. Who knows? But with the decision Adam Duritz made, in the end, he was able to have his cake and eat it too. He got back to being happy with his privacy, and he was a big, big star.
We're gonna be big stars.
Leave us a comment about Counting Crows and Mr. Jones. Such a cool story. Do you remember this song? It was on all the time in radio. At least I remember it being that way. Let us know what you thought about it, your memories. Also, there's a really cool follow-up story to this one. It goes right along with another Counting Crows hit along December. If you'd like a deep dive into that one, speak up, let us know below. We'll put together the next installment. And if you dig our content, make sure to take a second and subscribe below. That way you never miss out on our upcoming videos and interviews. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords. Down the truth, my friends.